Alright, so I have my case and my motherboard that I'm going to be using for my new server build. So I'm just going to kind of go over real quick what I'm going to do with this system. Now, I had a little trouble finding a case that was designed to accept radiators for liquid cooling and still had 5¼ inch drive bays, also known as a CD-ROM bay. People don't use CD-ROM drives anymore, so a lot of case manufacturers have been throwing out the 5¼ inch drive bays, which are still good for other things, many other things, such as fan controllers, readouts about internal temperature sensors, stuff like that. Card readers, you can get card readers, extra USB ports and stuff like that on the front of your case using a 5¼ inch drive bay. Or in my situation, and some of you may have seen this with my custom gaming cooling loop build, you can get these all-in-one cooling reservoirs. This cooling reservoir has a flow meter, internal temperature sensor, a reservoir, and the pump, all built into one unit that takes up 2 CD-ROM drive bays. This is perfect, especially for a case like this one, where I do not have to worry about trying to find room to hold a pump and a reservoir and all of that separately. It's all in one unit contained up here. Now up front here, you'll see there's 2 case fans. The case ships with 120s, but it supports 140s. You put the fans on the front side of this mounting bracket, and you can put on the inside of this mounting bracket a 280mm radiator heat exchanger. For those of y'all who don't know what a radiator is, it's a heat exchanger, like what's in the front of your car. Anyway, now this space right here, I need to measure this. I'm hoping I can put a 45mm rad in here. It's a above average thickness. Most are on average 30 millimeters. Now, my goal is to have as much heat exchanger space as is possible in this case, because I plan to overclock an 8-core CPU from 3.6 gigahertz is the base clock up to 5. So I want as much cooling space as is possible to keep that CPU as cool as is possible. And I'm not taking this out. This holds 2 3.5-inch hard drives. Now I'm not going to take this out because I can get these adapters that hold 2 2.5-inch drives in the same space, and I can put 4 laptop drives. And if you see this space back here, this is also for a 2.5-inch drive, so I could put 5 laptop drives and a RAID array for data backups. So I'm not going to just remove this, at which point I could put in a huge thick radiator, because I need that mounting space for the fact that I'm using this as a server. I need the storage space. Now, as you can see up top up here, now kind of hard to show it, I'll just do that. Up top up here, this is again on space where I could potentially put another 280mm radiator. Only problem is that would put it over into this space. Now, I could in that case do a 240 versus a 280, and it would only come up to here, and then I'd have the fittings up here, and I'd have to run a hose all the way back. That is a possibility. But what I'm really thinking about doing is I'm just going to do a single 140mm rad, except I'll use one of those monsters, one of the AlphaCool Monster radiators. The Monster radiators are 80mm thick. So that 80 millimeters will bring it down to about right here. So I'm going to do a little pre-configuration, a little pre-testing to see if that would be practical. I'm going to place the motherboard in here, see where that's going to sit in relation to the water block. If 80 is too thick, I might go with a 60 instead. If I have to, I'll go back down to the 45 like I'm playing for the front. And I'm not sure if I want to go this route or not. I'm not sure if it's going to be necessary, even with overclocking, because I'm going to have 3 radiator segments, but I could potentially put one back here too. Now this is only a 120 mil space on the back, but I could put a radiator back here as well. And of course you have your traditional motherboard space, USB front panel stuff, and power supply goes right here. And here is the motherboard. Now this is a interesting looking motherboard. Let me take the case down from up here. Now this is a ASRock motherboard. There we go. There we go. Now, many of you may know that ASRock used to be the low-end boards made by Asus. They are now their own company, and they do their own thing now. Have a bunch of stuff that it comes with, which is pretty cool, pretty nifty. As I've said in my first video of this playlist, this workspace here, this chest freezer, is all steel and as such is grounded. So I don't have to worry about shocking my components. Now this is a really well packaged board. This is actually the heatsink for the chipset. This is a heatsink array for the VRMs, which power the processor. It actually is designed with the intent of being overclocked because it takes 3 full CPU sets of connections over here. Normally for an 8-core CPU, you'd probably only need this one right here. That provides enough power. But if you want to do some serious major overclocking, you need all 3 sets of connections. This has 3 M.2 drive slots, 1, 2, and 3. I'm tempted to use the 3rd one because it might make it easier for me to configure the server system as a whole. Because the way I currently have it set up, it's kind of a mess. But if I rebuild it, I could use this as my system drive, along with maybe basic overall system shared resources, base config, stuff like that, but it won't actually contain any of the server data. I use one drive specifically for my personal servers that I run on this machine, and another drive specifically for my co-host servers. That would be iNkoR's Aether, the Temptest Reborn server, and ReapRPG. And there might be a couple others as well that might be brought back online. But yeah, this is the motherboard. It's a lovely looking board actually, and the whole schema of this board will go nicely with the case I bought for it. Now these are DDR4. These will support 128 gigabytes of RAM. So I won't have any issues as far as RAM goes. The processor I purchased is an i9 9900KF. The KS, while better, is too expensive right now, especially since I don't really. since I don't have a good income stream on my Patreon, this is all out of my own pocket. So I'm kind of having to cut a corner there on that one, but they overclock to the same speed regularly, so it's not really that big of a deal. I will be installing a graphics card on here. It's going to be the same one that you saw me put into the Equitas node network server. It's just going to be a simple 1X PCIe card that's going to offload any video RAM from being shared with the main RAM. My plan with this server is to run my entire Anarchy network, which is a total of 4 servers behind a single bungee. Right now I'm having issues where players connecting to it have a lot of lag because they're coming into the bungee on the server this is going to be replacing, and they're being redirected to another server on the network. And while it has its own dedicated Ethernet cable, it's not enough. And I don't know if the issue is that configuration as a whole, the fact that this machine is running Windows versus Linux. I mean, that could be it, because players that connect to the Equitas, which is running Linux, can connect to the Anarchy server, and I've been told by at least one player so far that it's better doing that. So it might just be that. Or it could be the combination of it's Windows redirecting to another Windows machine, and if it was all on one machine, the lag would go away. I honestly don't know. But this is going to be an 8-core CPU with 16 threads, so I can easily handle a dozen servers on this one machine without overloading the machine or compromising the performance of a single server on the network, on the machine, because the way Java is, only a single one of those threads will be used for the tick thread. All the other threads will be used for random networking and stuff. So I figure I can run a dozen servers, they'll each have their own dedicated thread, and then the remaining 4 threads can be used for all the random other stuff that's not gonna be a big performance impact. I never run as many servers as I have threads, because you want some spare threads for the server to handle non-tick stuff on. But yeah, so that is the overview I've got so far on this. When it comes to the rebuild, I am not going to have to reinstall the server, reinstall Windows or any of that. I will literally just be copying, physically transferring the M.2 drives over. They're all Intel chipsets, so as soon as I transfer those over, I'll be able to power it on. It will boot up the pre-existing server OS, no issues. It'll install the new hardware for the new CPU. I'll reboot. Everything will be good to go. Now, of course, I'm going to move some stuff around, but, you know, that's a whole other story. So, tell me what you think, guys. Let's see, there's a couple of things I was wanting maybe some potential opinions on. I forget what they are offhand, though. Oh, yeah. Should I get a third drive? This would provide more total system storage, so certain things aren't going to be shared across different drives, because these are only 0.5 terabyte drives each. So should I get a third drive, or should I stick with the 2? I honestly think sticking to the 2 would be just fine for now, but upgrading to 3 would make it easier to manage. Not that that's really that big of a deal for me anyways. And I forget what the second thing was. Anyway, that's just a basic overview of what I'm doing with this. So, ciao.